Hello and welcome to Just Jets, episode number 307. This is the 2025 Jets Postmortem episode. What does Postmortem mean? Well, essentially looking at a dead body. The New York Jets, or at least the 2025 version of the New York Jets, have finally passed away. And this is one of those where you were ready for it to end. You were ready for it to be over. 3-14. Not a fun 17-game season for the New York Jets. Certainly didn't go as I expected, or most people expected, I would say. There were some who I thought were definitely way too positive on this team and were predicting in the 9 or 10 win range. And there were other, in my opinion, before the start of the season that I thought were too negative, who were saying like 3 or 4 wins. I thought 6 or 7. I believe 7 and 10 was the official prediction, which they didn't come close to. Obviously, they went 3-14, nowhere close. So they were actually worse than I anticipated going into this year, and it's frustrating to watch. It was not a fun one, really, at all. So let's just get into it, man, and finally put this one to bed and be the offseason champions that we are, the 15-time defending offseason champion New York Jets. I mean, what the hell happened this year? Especially over the last 5 weeks of the year. I know I'm going to break it down. Essentially, to me, the Jets season went or had 3 different sections. There were 3 different areas. Oh my God, the last 5. I mean, how it ended: 35-8, 42-10, 29-6, 48-20, 34-10. That's about as uncompetitive as it actually gets. And like I said, I think there's 3 sections of this season, and I'll try to break down each one and, give as much context to the conversation as we can. That's all we can do here, right? Like, I don't want to sugarcoat it. Obviously, the Jets were really bad. Aaron Glenn was really bad. But it's not as valuable to just go, Aaron Glenn sucks, fire him, when that's a fair take to have. It was really bad, but they're not firing him. So I don't personally have it in me to yell and scream about it every day for the next however long until the start of the 2026 season. They have to hope that it obviously gets better. But my God, I understand why people come away from this year and go, this could be or should be a one and done situation. But like I said, forget that. Let's just get into my 3 sections of this season. The first 5, to me, is pretty self-explanatory, which is the first 5 games. Week 1, game I was at, a fun one. They should have beaten the Pittsburgh Steelers. They didn't. Their defense played absolutely abysmal in that game. Offensively, that was their best showing by far. Justin Fields' best game of the year by far. And they lost mainly off of a fumble from Xavier Gipson on special teams, plus the Pittsburgh's kicker, Boswell, hitting a 60-yard field goal. That's backbreaker, man. It really is. And that, unfortunately, I think set the tone, right? Like, that felt like one where it's like, you could have had that one. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they just end up going 4-13. It's really not all that different. But I don't know. I think week 1 could set the tone for a season. And that one was, man, just finding ways to lose. And that was the story through really this first 5. They were blown out by Buffalo, kind of expected. Buffalo was really good at the start of the year. And you had the Tampa Bay game. Justin Fields was hurt. Tyrod Taylor started. It wasn't really all that close for most of it. The Jets block a field goal and return it for a touchdown. They end up having a late lead, blow a late lead. Very fluky game, again, with the blocked field goal. It really shouldn't have been that close. It was relatively close until the pick 6. That was bad in that game. But had the lead late, couldn't hold. Give up a game-winning field goal the other way. Miami fumble city in week 4. Whether it was Braylon Allen going into the end zone, first drive of the game, The team melted down after that first drive. They looked like they were just punching Miami in the face over and over and over again, running down their throat. They get down to Braylon Allen fumbles going into the end zone at the 1 yard line, and it goes off the rail. Isaiah Williams has a fumble in this game too, I believe. It's just not good. The Dallas Massacre. No, we're not talking about JFK. That was the game against the Dallas Cowboys at MetLife Stadium, just a complete blowout. So 2 ugly, ugly stinkers against Buffalo and Dallas. And that was a frustrating part of the season because they very easily could have been 2-3 through the first 5 games. Instead, they're 0-5. And it's like, are they ever going to get this first win? And you're just sitting around waiting for the Jets to finally get that first win. And you'd have to wait a little bit more. But the middle slate of the season, or the next spot, I'm just calling normal bad. They were a normal bad football team. They weren't good. They were just like a normal bad team. They went 3-4 in their next 7 games. And, their next 2 after that were both losses after that game against Dallas that I was talking about. You lost to Denver in London in another game you arguably should have won. To me, I think it was a really bad decision from Aaron Glenn not going to Tyrod Taylor. And we're obviously looking at this in the context of in the moment rather than looking back and be like, oh, well, would you really rather that one more win and not have the number 2? Let's look at this what it meant at the time. The Denver one in Carolina with better quarterback play, they probably win those games. But the defense looked better in those 2. And you're thinking, all right, are they turning a corner here? And then they get their first win. Cincinnati in week 8. And you know what? That was a game for all the faults, and there are many to point out for Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn played a big factor in the Jets winning that game. The game management from him in that game was a big reason why they won. He made an aggressive play to go for 2, and they hit it, and then set themselves up to go down the field and score again and take the lead, and that's exactly what they did. And they held out, and they won that game. They won out of the bye the following, a couple weeks later against Cleveland. Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams are gone at this point, so they were selling off. It was going to look very different. You get a couple losses to New England and Baltimore that weren't really all that close, and then a win over the Atlanta Falcons to close off that section. But 3-4, and it was like, okay, you're looking at your final 5 games. You have Miami, you have New Orleans. Is there a game in there or 2 where you could win? And you know what? It's not. I thought they'd be for instance, a lot of people thought they'd be a 7-win team. They were a little worse than that. They were 5-12, but after starting 0-7, they finished 5-5, and it's you go 500 the second half, or a little bit more than the second half of the season. And, let's see where it is, right? Fortunately, that's not what happened at all. Tyrod Taylor, who's starting at this point, he was benched after the New England game. He gets hurt against Miami, and things were not looking good already in that game against Miami. But Brady Cook comes in, and shout out Brady Cook, because I don't know if I've seen a more elite tank commander than Brady Cook. I mean, the guy had me essentially yearning for the Trevor Siemian days. That's how bad the quarterback play was. It was that bad. So, no, the Jets shouldn't have started Brady Cook from the beginning of the year. There's nothing. He didn't give you anything to evaluate. It was bad. The defense gave up in this point. They fire Steve Wilkes, who was clearly not the guy and was, in hindsight, a bad hire from Aaron Glenn. They shut down, at some point, Breece Hall, Mason Taylor, Garrett Wilson, Will McDonald, Brandon Stevens, A.Z. Thomas. They shut down a lot of guys, and it's a skeleton crew. especially at the wide receiver position. John Mechie and A.D. Mitchell, who got here in the middle of the year, were essentially your number 1 and number 2 receiver. Isaiah Williams, who they also picked up in season, was their number 3 receiver. Jeremy Ruckert, starting tight end. Someone by the name of Keidron Smith was your leading tackler against Buffalo. He had 15 tackles in that game. How do you evaluate the final 5 games of the year? That's what I'm having a hard time with. Like, obviously, I'm not giving Aaron Glenn credit for those 5 games because he wasn't good, but I would like to consider myself a pretty informed Jets fan. I follow this team daily. I keep up with, the roster and all that stuff, but who the hell is Keidron Smith? And there were, numerous guys like that. Jordan Clark and Dean Clark from the practice squad come up towards the end of the year. Jasir Taylor's playing, and it's like, this is nowhere close to the team that they came out of the year and started with. And it was just overall bad. And final, just overarching thoughts on this team here. Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are back, for better or for worse, in 2026. They had a press conference yesterday by the time this is coming out. They are steadfast on their plan. That plan needs to show results in 2026. I'm not saying if they are, if they aren't 14-3, then it's not good enough. But my God, if they have another year close to this, where it's this uncompetitive, that many blowout losses, that bad and ugly, and it's a 3, 4, 5, 6 win season, is that enough for those guys to get a year 3? I don't think so. At that point, I don't think so. My God, do they have a lot of proof. And finally, we can close the book on the 2025 season, and I'm happy to. Before we get into your voicemails, shout out to the sponsor, Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day into payday. Just download the Sleeper app and pick more or less on your favorite players. More stats than any other daily fantasy app. Just choose 2 or more of your favorites from pregame or live. Pick more or less from the predicted stats, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code O'Leary. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit, or you could take the free $20 no deposit required promo. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's get into your voicemails. I want to hear your thoughts after the Jets' final game of the year. We get it started with Scott, who is calling in from the beautiful Big Sky, Montana.
Hey, Matt. Scott calling in from Montana. Thanks for taking my call. It's halftime of the Jets game, and I think I'll put a bow on the season right here. Besides, we just downed the ball on the 2-yard line, which has been our best unit all year long, which is our special team. So this is a good way to end the season for me. Overall, Matt, what a great day to be a Jets fan. We're soundly losing. The Giants won, so we've secured the number 2 pick in the draft. The Colts lost. The Vikings have already won. Right now at half, Detroit is winning. Hopefully Baltimore can win tonight. Maybe that Indianapolis Colts pick can go up a couple more spots. Matt, with us having the number 2 pick, we've just got to, as long as Dante Moore goes pro, we just absolutely have to draft whichever quarterback is available, Mendoza or Moore at number 2. Bring in a veteran, let them sit for a while behind them, and then at some point find out if they're the quarterback or not. And then the following year, if they don't look like they're the answer, you have the 3 first-round picks to use the following year too. But I sure hope we don't mess around. Let's take a quarterback with that 2nd pick as long as Moore comes out and one of the 2 are available. The only other thought I have, Matt, is, I heard the announcer during the game talk about faith is when you have belief despite no evidence. Well, that's what I'm going to have going into the offseason, Matt, is faith that the Jets have a plan, that Aaron Glenn has a plan, because I've seen no evidence that there's a plan in place, but I'm going to have blind faith that there's a plan in place, and as we always do, let's go win the off season. All right, Matt. Take care.
Thank you so much, Scott. Really appreciate it. I like the call, and I think with how this ended with them at the number 2 pick, I would be very shocked if they didn't take a quarterback number 2. Now, it's very contingent, clearly, on what Dante Moore decides to do. College football playoff continues. Big game on Friday. I mean, we'll definitely talk about it and do a video later in the week, but Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore going head-to-head on Friday night. I'll certainly be locked in for that one. I think it's going to be awesome. And as Jet fans, I think you absolutely should be tuned into that too. And on the Aaron Glenn comment, it is blind faith right now. Because there isn't anything tangible that you could take from this year outside of I'll try my best to give you some, and I'm not going to be like, oh, they didn't have a blocked field goal. They have a really good special teams unit. Clearly made a good decision by hiring Chris Banjo. I am cautiously optimistic about Tanner Engstrand as an offensive coordinator. I think that the offensive line is in a good spot, and I think they should try to retain and keep that unit together for next year. You have a good wide receiver 1. Now, this isn't all like Aaron Glenn things, although he is a big part of the player personnel. So have Garrett Wilson. That's a pretty decent spot for a young quarterback to come into. It's not like the 2018 or 2021 Jets. They're the in-game decisions from the Cincinnati game. So it's a really one game that I'm pointing to is like that. Yes, they absolutely won that because of Aaron Glenn decisions. And other than that, it's just like you said, the blind faith. So it's a very small, minute details that I'm hitting on, but that's really all you can do at this moment. Liam from Staten Island.
Hey, Matt, Liam from Staten Island here. It's over. It's finally over. The season of hell just finally ends. Thank God it ended exactly how I wanted it to. But what a disaster. I mean, there's nothing to say about today's game. It was, a practice squad team versus a playoff team. So I got what I expected. Just wrote down a couple of little things. First off, Aaron Glenn, tank commander of the century. I mean, that's the best tank effort I've seen the Jets have in quite some time. We won some games early. We did have the first pick for early in the season, but, we were at like 6 or 7 only a few weeks ago. He commanded the tank, brought in Brady Cook, benched everybody. He's got to get some credit for that. Question for you. Now we got the second pick. You going quarterback? You going best available? I just want to know your opinion on that. Next year, is Brady Cook still on the team? And the other one is Justin Fields on the team? I know he's not going to play. Sure as hell not starting, hopefully. But how much money do we realistically save by keeping him versus getting rid of him? Another one, Sam Darnold. We drafted a number 1 seed quarterback. He's not on our team anymore, but we drafted him. That's impressive. That's probably the first time we've ever done that. Another idea I had, I want to get your take on this. Next year, we don't watch any of the games live. Watch them when they're done and just play them backwards. The Jets will never lose. We'll come back in almost every single game from a massive deficit. They end as a tie. You move on with your life. I think it's an excellent idea to make this team sufferable because next year is going to be as bad, if not worse, as this year, unless we draft a quarterback and he's phenomenal. But if we don't draft a quarterback, which I would understand, we're going to be real bad next year. And other than that, thank you, Matt. Thank you, all the fans that listen and tune in and all the fun I've had this year listening to you guys.
Oh, thank you, man.
It's been a fun roller coaster. You've been the best part of this Jet season, I will say that. Many, many memories, many, many fun episodes and fun conversations we've had. So thank you again. I appreciate it, and I look forward to ranting and complaining next season. And as always, go Jets and go Matt O'Leary.
Oh, Liam, you're the best, man. Really appreciate it. I love doing this show. And, it stinks that our football team that we love is god-awful. But I say it a lot, but I have to reiterate the community that we have is really, really special. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I appreciate you guys. I'm with you. I really am. So thank you for supporting. And we're not going anywhere just because the season's over. We do episodes every single day, so make sure to keep the call-ins. We'll do, every Wednesday a new episode will drop. So call in on, your take on it, anything related to the Jets, whether it's defensive coordinator hires or players they should target or a mock draft or whatever it is you want to do. Please stay in touch, Liam. But a few thoughts as well on your comments. I love the idea of watching the games in reverse and ending in a tie. That is definitely more fitting than watching it the regular way and finding out that the Jets lost 42-10. I think the Jets will take a quarterback at number 2. I do believe Dante Moore comes out, and I think one of Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza, will be the Jets quarterback next year with a veteran, whether that's a Malik Willis or Marcus Mariota type. I think it would be someone like that the Jets bring in while also drafting a quarterback. So hopefully that answers your first question. What were some of the other ones? Oh, Justin Fields will not be on the roster. They could save $10 million by designating him as a post-June 1 cut. I am very confident that that's how that story will play out. Brady Cook probably sticks around as a preseason arm, but does not make the team and likely does not get retained to the practice squad. But he'll be like the 4th quarterback that's there with, a vet, a rookie, and somebody else. That would be my take on that. But Liam, thank you so much. Let's go out to Travis from Ohio up next.
Hey, Matt. Travis from Ohio. Hey, buddy. Full transparency, it's my birthday today. And
happy belated birthday.
We just got the 2nd pick. So that's awesome. Plus with the couple losses from Detroit beating Chicago, I think guaranteed us either the 15th or 16th overall pick from Indy. Anywho, with all the picks and stuff we got and possibilities of trading back, I counted up the roster and I only see about 34 guys that we can we're maybe bringing back next year. So we're going to need, 56 or 26 more? Anyhow, just wonder your thoughts on filling out the roster, and we actually might use all those draft picks this year. Love you, buddy. Happy New Year. Bye.
Travis, I appreciate you. Happy New Year to you and your family as well. Happy belated birthday. The Jets have a lot of ammo over the next 2 years to add to this roster, and one of them, and I hear the argument where people are saying that they should wait on quarterback and just build out the team and the roster. I don't necessarily think that is a wrong approach. The reason why I don't think it's likely to happen is because if the Jets bring in, I just said in the last call, let's say Mariota or Malik Willis, and they draft a mid-round a 4th-round quarterback, and it's those 2 guys, and they win 3 games or 4 games next year, well, that's 7 wins in 2 years. Are they going to get a 3rd year and going to get the opportunity for that, those 3 first-round picks in 2027? Or is Woody Johnson going to go, you know what, we'll do a clean slate. We have 3 first-round picks. Let's hire, a hot shot, 2027 coaching candidate and GM candidate, and let them go and try to build out the rest of the way in 2027 with all the draft ammo that we have then. So, I know that there's people probably rooting for that to be the case, for that to happen. I don't think they're going to go down, and they being Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn are going to go down without a swing at the quarterback spot. Peter from the beautiful Hudson Valley, what do you got?
Hey, man. It's Peter calling from the beautiful Hudson Valley on this Sunday evening after another dismantling, in this case, by the Bills in Orchard Park. Rich Stadium, as I always knew it as. Oh, hi, Mark. Hey, we went out on a low mark. What a shock. 35-8. Yikes. What a season. I'm sure there's a lot of people who will look back on this, who predicted the Jets would win like 3 or 4 games, and were ultimately right. Of course, I sit somewhere in the neighborhood of like 7 to 10 wins. Yeah, not so much. Anyway, a lot of work ahead. A lot of off-season talk, a lot of draft talk, free agency, all that stuff. But some takeaways from the game. Hey, at least the offensive line continuity was good. They started all 17 games together since ABT
There
was
you go.
lost before the season even started. So that's a bonus. But some penalties killed some things early on, which wasn't nice. Yeah. What are you going to do when you're starting B-level players from the practice squad? Going
B
a
level's
whole
nice.
season without an interception. Great record to set there. Yay. Gosh. It was nice to see the classic uniforms on the field again.
They look
Can't
great.
say that I've absolutely missed those, so even if we get them once a year, that's not a bad thing. But, yeah. This is the Jets, and I think that anytime the Jets set a record, there should always be sort of like an asterisk next to their name, and it should say, but this is the Jets. This is the way this team plays. Anyway, 10 straight years without a winning record, 15 straight years without visiting the playoffs. Something's got to change. Whatever quarterback they bring in, or quarterbacks, because they also bring in a veteran, this has got to be rebuilt from the ground up. We'll have a lot of that talk going in the off season. So any thoughts? We'll leave for those calls. And as always, go Jets. Straight to hell.
What a call. What a call, Peter. Really appreciate it, man. Another loyal caller. It was awesome seeing your name and all the regulars' names pop up throughout this season. Like I said earlier, that's the best part of being able to do this, is have the conversations with the fans. And there's not a lot of positives to hit on. The offensive line, I think, was mostly good, man. Like Josh Myers, he re-signed, and you have right guard at Joe Tippmann, and I think you leave him there and let him just be the right guard for this team for the future. You love your tackle duo. You have a good wide receiver one. I hope they bring back Breece Hall, and feel good about that running back room. And they do have a lot of work, though. That defense needs to really, really go under a big construction. And you know what it starts with? Who they hire for defensive coordinator. That's a really big decision from Aaron Glenn, because what they put on tape in 2025 is just flat out not acceptable. PG from Long Island.
Hello, Matt O'Leary, PG from Long Island here. Thank you for taking the call. I just want to give you a little shout out to your Black Monday, draft.
Thank you.
Mock draft, getting started early. Appreciate that. You could argue that you maybe could have started even 3 weeks ago.
Probably.
Going into the next season here. I'm generally a optimistic Jet fan, obviously. I had the Jets winning a lot more games than they did this year. But I got to tell you, I'm not optimistic about going into this next year. I think we'll get headed for a wasted season, and that all has to do with Aaron Glenn coming back as the head coach. These last 5 games have been horrible. They've been a disappointment. Really, nothing you really say with that kind of spread, losing the way they have. And, you can say, okay, well, it's because the Jets, there's, injuries and all that. But I look back at that game in 2023, the Jets played against the Eagles, where they were decimated in the secondary, and they went in and they had several undrafted rookies playing, and they, Saleh and Obed schemed them up, and they actually did really well. Man-to-man coverage mixed in with big nickels and, really confused them and kept them off balance, and they won that game. So it can be done. I just don't think that Glenn is the guy to do it. He's a head coach. He's the CEO, but you need to get your hands on in with the X's and O's like Belichick always has. And as far as Glenn, I don't think he has the ability. I think that his ability with X's and O's doesn't go past the tic-tac-toe board. And the rest of the league is playing three-dimensional chess. So, unfortunately, I'm not very optimistic. Question for you, who had a worse season? Aaron Glenn as the head coach of the Jets, or my guy, Brady Cook, as the quarterback for the Jets? Who had the worst season? And to paraphrase Scott from Montana, go Jets off season.
I'm going to say Aaron Glenn, because at least with Aaron, well, I can only speak for myself, but with Aaron Glenn, there was more expectation. I didn't have any expectation for Brady Cook, and he played to me like a undrafted rookie free agent quarterback who wasn't ready, and that's kind of where I thought he'd be. Unfortunately, served his purpose as a tank commander, sure, but not someone who I really want to see get NFL reps in regular season games going forward. With Aaron Glenn, even take out the last 5 games, they were 3-9 at that point, and there were a lot of games that they probably should have won. And, if they do win those games, you probably have a better faith argument to defend Aaron Glenn. And, if they were just a regular 5-12 or 6-11, I know that's, 2 or 3 more wins. You're probably not hearing as many calls for Aaron Glenn's head. I just think it really ramped back up again with how poorly they finished the year. And with all the names, the big name guys. Where were you when Keidron Smith had 15 tackles against the Buffalo Bills? Who the hell is Keidron Smith? David from New Jersey to close us out.
Hey, Matt. This is David from New Jersey. I'm calling to ask a question. Because I was hearing a lot that this defense had been horrible under Glenn, but this was the same defense that went up in Buffalo when they had a Hall of Fame quarterback and they got smashed. They couldn't stop anything. They quit with a Hall of Famer and they didn't put up no kind of fight. That was my fear with Glenn coming in here, that he was going to inherit that same guys, the same mentality. And I want to know, is you feel that it is Glenn who caused him to be even worse, or is it the same guy who had quit before on this team? And I'm thinking if Glenn get rid of most of these guys, I think it'll be a better team next year. My question to you is, what did you think, based on what I said, when you saw that team? Isn't it the same guys who were there when Buffalo blew out the Jets with Rodgers? Isn't that the same guys that we're seeing today? Anyhow, man, that's just me. I'm just trying to figure out if you could compare the two teams and tell me there's a difference if in the team that was here and the team that was back then, if there's not the same guys. And they quit. So that's why I think the blame shouldn't always be on Glenn. It should be on these guys. Anyhow, man, go Jets later.
I don't think the two teams are even really comparable. I hate to keep bringing his name up, 10 times on this episode, but who the hell is Keidron Smith? They were playing no one in the last week of the year against Buffalo, and neither was Buffalo, by the way. But to me, it's much worse than a year when you went in with Aaron Rodgers and you had, you did the Devontae Adams trade and a whole bunch of veterans, and Jermaine Johnson was healthy, and you had Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams in 2024, and on that 2024 Jets team was you had Garrett Wilson healthy. They lost 40-14 in Buffalo, and really they were down 40-0 in that game at the start of the fourth quarter. That's so much worse. And both things, like two things can be true at the same time. That the team isn't good enough and they need to massively overhaul it. And also Aaron Glenn hasn't been very good. It doesn't have to be, oh, it's the player's fault, or, oh, it's only Aaron Glenn's fault. It's both. The rookie head coach didn't look very good in year one, and neither did his practice squad players that were playing at the end of the year. I think it's really as simple as that. Guys, thanks for hanging out for another episode. I'm Matt O'Leary. Subscribe wherever you get the show, and I'll catch you next time.